Death was everywhere in the mid-14th century, a shadow so deep it seemed the sun itself had died. It wasn't the familiar death of old age or war. This was something new, terrifying and inescapable. The air itself felt poisoned. No one was safe, rich or poor, young or old. Church bells became a constant funeral dirge, echoing through empty streets. The vibrant life of towns, the blacksmith's hammer, the merchant's call, children's laughter was silenced. In their place, the rumble of death carts and the chilling cry, "Bring out your dead!" People barricaded themselves indoors, but the plague seeped through every crack. Entire families vanished in a single day. Prophecies and sermons spoke of apocalypse and divine wrath, but nothing explained the speed or scale of the catastrophe. The pestilence swept from city to city, leaving only grief and desolation. This was the Black Death, a war against an invisible enemy. The casualties weren't distant soldiers, but neighbours, friends and children. Trust dissolved, replaced by fear. The bonds of community snapped. Even a handshake or a shared cup could mean death. The world felt as if it was ending, and for many it was. The familiar had become deadly, the future a terrifying void. This was the world the plague created. The Black Death's story began far from Europe in the rodent-infested plains of Central Asia. There, Yersinia pestis lived quietly among marmots, rarely threatening humans, but the world was changing. The Mongol Empire's Pax Mongolica made travel and trade safer than ever. The Silk Road became a bustling highway connecting east and west. Caravans carried not just silk and spices, but stowaways, black rats and their fleas. The oriental rat flea, Xenopsilla chiopis, was the perfect bridge for the plague. Fleas fed on infected rodents, then jumped to new hosts, often humans, when their original hosts died. As trade flourished, so did the chain of infection. Black rats with no immunity became ideal carriers. Fleas bit rats, rats died, and desperate fleas bit humans. The plague leapt from animal to human, hitching a ride westward along the Silk Road. It moved from oasis to oasis, a hidden passenger in the caravans of commerce. The seeds of pestilence were sown, ready to devastate the world. The stage was set for disaster. The plague was no longer a distant threat. It was coming. Europe had no idea what was on its way. The plague crept along the Silk Road, hidden in the shadows of trade. Black rats, thriving near humans, became the perfect accomplices. Fleas, the true agents of death, bit infected rats and then humans, regurgitating bacteria into their wounds. A single bite could be fatal. Caravans unknowingly carried the cycle westward. Healthy merchants departed, but by the next city, death had arrived. The disease moved at the pace of trade, infiltrating cities from the Middle East to the Black Sea. In 1346, at the Genoese port of Kaffa, the plague became a weapon. Mongol besiegers catapulted infected corpses over the walls. The defenders were horrified, but it was too late. The disease was inside. Rats and fleas did the rest. The invader had reached Europe's doorstep. The Silk Road, once a path of prosperity, had become a highway of death. The world would never be the same. The nightmare at Kaffa was just the beginning. Genoese merchants fled by ship, unknowingly carrying the plague to Europe. In October 1347, 12 galleys arrived in Messina, Sicily. Most sailors were dead or dying, covered in black boils. Authorities tried to expel the ships, but the rats and fleas had already come ashore. Within days, Messina was engulfed. Panic spread as the healthy fled, carrying the disease into the countryside. Other ships sailed to Genoa, Venice and Marseille, turning each port into a new epicenter. The plague followed trade routes, leaping from city to city. By the end of 1347, it was entrenched in Italy and France. By mid-1348, it had crossed the Alps and arrived in Spain and England. Europe, unprepared, faced an enemy it could not see or stop. The Black Death was everywhere. No city, no village, no family was safe. The continent was under siege from within. The apocalypse had arrived. The plague shattered society. Fear ruled every action. Giovanni Boccaccio wrote of families abandoning each other, parents refusing to help their own children. The fear of contagion broke the strongest bonds. People locked themselves away or fled, spreading the disease further. Cities became death traps, crowded, filthy and perfect for the plague. Public services collapsed, markets closed, streets fell silent. In Milan, authorities walled up houses of the sick, sealing the healthy inside with the dying. Elsewhere, panic reigned. Scapegoats were sought and violence erupted. The social order dissolved, trust vanished. The roads filled with refugees, but nowhere was safe. The plague was everywhere, and no one knew how to stop it. Desperation led to cruelty and chaos. The world was gripped by terror. The plague's true power was not just in death, but in the fear it unleashed. The death toll was unimaginable. Up to 60% of Europe's population gone in 5 years. Florence lost 3/4 of its people. Entire villages vanished. Cemeteries overflowed. Mass graves became the norm. In Avignon, the Pope consecrated the Rhone River so bodies could be dumped in holy water. The dignity of death was lost. In the countryside, a single traveller could doom a whole village. Essential workers died, communities collapsed, and ghost villages dotted the landscape. Survivors were haunted by guilt and trauma. The world felt cursed, abandoned by God. The psychological scars ran deep, shaping art, religion and culture for generations. The plague left Europe permanently changed. The living struggled to comprehend the scale of loss. The old world was gone, replaced by silence and sorrow. The Black Death's shadow lingered long after the bodies were buried. The Black Death unleashed not just death but hysteria. Desperate for answers, people turned on each other. Jewish communities were scapegoated and massacred. Religious fervour soared. Flagellants whipped themselves in public, hoping to appease God. Superstition flourished. Herbs, amulets and bizarre rituals became common. Myths spread faster than the disease itself. Fear corroded society from within, turning neighbours into enemies. The psychological terror was as deadly as the plague. Medieval medicine was powerless against the plague. Doctors relied on ancient theories, bloodletting, lancing buboes and useless potions. The iconic beaked plague doctor mask, stuffed with herbs, was based on the false belief that bad air caused disease. Most treatments did more harm than good, yet the crisis forced new thinking. Some doctors noticed the disease spread from person to person. Cities like Venice pioneered quarantines, 40 days of isolation for ships. It was a small step toward modern public health. The old ways were failing, but seeds of progress were sown. The fight against the plague changed medicine forever. The Black Death was a tragedy, but also a catalyst for change. With half the population gone, labour was scarce. Peasants gained power, serfdom declined and wages rose. The rigid social order crumbled and new opportunities emerged. The church's authority weakened and skepticism grew. Art and literature became obsessed with death, but also with life's fleeting beauty. The trauma fostered resilience and innovation. Survivors rebuilt, adapted and created a new society. The plague scarred Europe, but also cleared the way for the Renaissance. Out of darkness, a new world was born. The Black Death ended an era and began another.